Before going into the topic details, I want to bring your attention to the UPSC coaching programs offered by ClearIAS. ClearIAS offers online and offline courses to help candidates get selected for prestigious government services like IAS, IPS, or IFS. ClearIAS, Prelims cum Mains, PCM course, provides a highly effective study plan, well-organized subject-wise videos, study materials, mock exams, and guidance to cover the entire GS syllabus of UPSC CSE Prelims, Mains, and Interview systematically. As a limited period offer, there is a 40% discount on our online courses. Enroll now.
Venus, or the other word we can use is Shukrayaan. That is the informed word that is been actually used. Shukrayaan, that is regarding the Venus orbiter mission. Right. And why this is actually in the news recently? Because the cabinet committee actually gave permission to ISRO to start begin the particular project. So and the date also was actually released. So what are the dates actually they're targeting? They're targeting somewhere like March 2028. That will be the time this will be finally the project will be launching. And it will be a 112-day journey. So it will take 112 days for this particular probe to reach Venus from Earth axis. So it's a very long journey and will be in March, of course. So that is the point, that is a topic which we are actually going to discuss. And the next thing is actually about what kind of launch vehicle will be used. Is it a PSLV? Is a small launch vehicle is actually enough? Then we can go for SSLV. So there is something like SSLV is there. Small satellite launch vehicle is there, then polar satellite launch vehicle is there, then the large one GSLV is there, and this GSLV's name is actually recently changed to Launch Vehicle Mark III. GSLV is now called Launch Vehicle Mark III. So which is actually required? So here they say that it is actually Launch Vehicle Mark III. So we need our largest rocket for this project. Another statement. So Venus, Shukrayaan is to where? It is actually to Mars or Venus. It is Venus. And are they going to deploy SSLV or PSLV? No, they are going to deploy GSLV, which the current name is Launch Vehicle Mark III. And it will be a 112-day long journey, which will be happening in 2028. And we'll go for the different objectives of the particular program. What they're actually going to understand. We don't have to study all those things right now because the project will be happening in 2028 only. Very briefly, they are simply going to map the particular Venus. They will just look into the surface of the Venus. They will understand what all things are there, etc. And when we are actually going to Venus, are we closer to Sun or farther from Sun? From Earth. We are closer to Sun, right? So if there is a Sun here, there is actually, what is the first planet? Mercury, Venus, Earth, and the next one is Mars. So it's going like that. So if you are actually going to Venus, automatically we'll be closer to Sun. So we can explore the sun's rays, etc., sun's different phenomena up closely. So this solar X-ray spectrum will be there to analyze the different properties or features of sun. And the next thing is that there will be something like, have you seen the movie Interstellar? You've seen the movie Interstellar, right? So the first opening scenes or something is like, it is actually in the future. And the initial scenes will be something like the dust will be there. It will be too dusty. Why? Because there will be too much. The Earth is actually on the verge of extinction. Everything is getting destroyed. We want to go to a new planet and start new life there. So that is the thing which is happening in interstellar time. And there will be a lot of interstellar dust also. Interstellar means stardust. That is the point. We are all made out of stardust. Right? Even this pen, even this phone, all the different materials we can see, our own human body, all the different animals, everything is created because of different kind of molecules and other things. All these things are created from stars only. So we are all interstellar dust. So it's not a philosophy, it is basic science, of course. And this different kinds of stardust and other planet dust are in the atmosphere of Venus. So they will study about the dust in the Venus atmosphere. So this is what they are actually going to study in 2028. This is why the mission is actually planned. Right. So the next things about the Venus orbiter mission is regarding the payloads. Payloads means different kind of, experiments we can say. Different modules will be going within the Shukrayaan. 19 payloads will be there. And out of the 19 payloads, one will be international payload. And the two things will be, Indian plus international payload. And the rest of this, what is it? 16. 16 will be purely Indian payloads. So 16 experiments of India, and then 2 of them will be collaborations of India and other different countries, etc. And one international, that is actually Russian. So one Russian satellite is also coming within this Shukrayaan. So just like we mentioned about the PSLV, GSLV, etc., we know that we have a PSLV, which is one of our best rockets. And we know that PSLV once had a record, world record, that is, it actually launched somewhere like 104 satellites in one go. Just a satellite, just a rocket, but it had 104 small satellites, CubeSats, NanoSats, etc. All the satellites from Russia, USA, Europe, etc., we were launching. So what are we getting? We are getting money. They are giving us money. Why? Because we are launching their satellites. So they trust our PSLV. So just like that, in this very same Venus mission also, they trust our rockets, etc. So that is why Russia and other international agencies are giving their satellites to us. So we are going to launch them. The word is actually payloads for the experiment different missions. So these are the different missions which will be in the Venus orbiter mission. You don't have to go. These all have. These are all, what do you say? Different lengthy words are there. You don't have to go to that full forms, of course. Just know that this viral thing is actually Russian. This is the Russian payload which will be launching, and all the Revi, Vishwas. This Revi will be going to measure the Venus ionosphere, and the Vishwas is actually going to measure the solar wind also. So these things are not that much necessary. You don't have to memorize these words. If at all they ask in the prelims actually, they may ask which is actually which what is Vishwas, which is recently seen in news. They may ask one word questions out of it. That is the maximum possibility. They may never ask you what is Vishwas, what is Vodax, etc. in the mains also. That kind of core things, specific things will not be asked in the UPSC mains. Right. So, and this what is also, it is basically for the ionosphere studies, and they will look into if there is any volcanic eruptions. If there is any volcanism happening in Venus, they will be studying in the VARTIS experiment. And this VODEX experiment actually studies what we just mentioned before, the interplanetary dust, etc. That the VODEX experiment will be studying. So these are the different things within the Shukrayaan or the Venus orbiter mission. Right. And we have 2 more slides in the Venus orbiter mission. Is it okay? I can move the slide. Okay. 2 more mission, the 2 more slides. The one thing is about the previous missions towards Venus. UPSC have definitely asked about the Juno. Juno was actually a satellite, man-made satellite which went to Jupiter. They asked in the mains question, that is, how is Juno relevant to humankind? Something like that question was actually there. So they can definitely ask, take one question, take one satellite. They can simply ask you what is the relevance in the mains exam, or they can simply create different satellites. They can simply ask you list of satellites. Then they will ask you which of the 4 above satellites are actually going to Venus, or which of the satellites are actually going to Jupiter. So they can create a question like that also. So these are the previous satellites which has actually gone to Venus, and this Envision is actually planned for 2030. It is by European Space Agency. So it's a future mission. Envision is actually a future mission. So make sure that you don't confuse that with the other satellites. And Veritas also will be a future mission of NASA. Envision will be of Europe and Veritas will be of NASA, that is US. Why I'm telling you this? Because this will definitely be confusing. I'm sure about that. But they have definitely asked about LIGO projects. They have asked about the LISA Pathfinder. They have asked about different kind of space exploration missions, at least in the prelims exam. So they can definitely ask you, take some samples of this kind of words. They can simply ask you straightforward one word question. What is this thing? So make sure that you don't have to by heart this thing too much. Don't spend too much effort on that, but you revise properly. So the more number of times you see these words, you'll automatically understand where this mission is actually going. Right. So then Akatsuki, you can just understand it is actually by JAXA. JAXA is of the Space Agency of Japan. That was also gone to, what do you say, Venus, of course. And there is Da Vinci. Da Vinci is also by NASA. They're planning it somewhere around 2029. So this is also in the future missions. And there was actually, the other things are actually previous missions, which is not that much relevant. The first ever Venus mission is relevant. That is Pioneer Venus 1 of NASA. So that is the first ever mission that had actually gone to the Venus. That was in 1978. So it was in 1978 we first visited Venus by NASA, of course. And just following that, in 1985, there is something like Vega, that is actually of USSR. So they were actually competing, right? The Cold War was actually happening, and the US actually went first, Pioneer Venus 1, and then Vega followed of USSR. So these are the earlier missions, and Akatsuki was of JAXA, and these three will be the future missions: Da Vinci, Veritas, and Envision. I hope it is actually clear, but I know that it will be confusing. So it's okay. So make sure that you do maximum number of revisions so that it will be easier for you. Right. So we go to the last slide of this particular topic. Right. About the comparison of Earth and Venus and why it is actually called the twin sister of Earth. That is the point. So Venus is actually called the twin sister of Venus, Earth actually, but there is a problem. If it is actually called a twin sister, just know the story that Russia itself has actually sent somewhere like more than 20 probes to the Venus actually. None of them actually survived for more than 2 hours. So within 2 hours, they simply get destroyed. Why? Because it is extremely hot. So then why we call the Venus actually twin sister of Earth? Any idea? The size is actually almost same. So we can actually, if at all they ask a 10 mark small question, why importance of Venus or importance of Shukrayaan or why Venus is important, why Venus is called the twin sister, etc., like that. You can note down these points. First of all, the size of the Venus is actually very similar to that of Earth. For example, the radius we can take. If we take the radius of Earth, actually it is somewhere close to 6,300 kilometers, and of Venus is actually 6,000 kilometers. So it is almost very near. So it is almost very identical shape of balls. That is actually the Venus and Earth. That is one point. And not just the size of it. If we consider the other dimensions, for example, mass, the entire mass of the particular planet, the volume of the planet, everything is actually almost identical. We don't have to go to the numbers. Just know that the mass, volume, size, everything is almost identical. That is why Venus is called as the twin sister of Earth. Right. But it is not definitely, everything is not just the very same. One more thing is actually similar, that is the structure. What do you mean by the structure of a planet? For example, if you take Earth, we have a core, we have a mantle, and we have a crust is there. Is our core which is liquid or in a solid state? Our core is in a liquid or a solid state. So we have an inner core, we have a solid core. The inner core, we have an outer core also. Our inner core, the innermost portion, it is solid. Just the outermost portion, it is liquid. Then we have a plastic or a molten mantle is there. Then we have a solid crust where we live. So this is the structure of Earth. So just like that, the Venus structure is almost the very same thing. So they have a solid core, but it just outside the solid core, they have some kind of molten plastic. Plastic means molten, liquid, something like that. So they have a plastic outer core also. Then upwards, when they reach the surface, it is actually solid. So the structure is almost very same that of the Earth. So when we think about the structure of a planet, think about our own planet, core, mantle, and crust is there. Core has two parts, inner and outer core. Inner is solid, outer is liquid. Then mantle is almost in a liquid state, plastic state. And then we have crust, the small portion, crust is actually solid. Venus also has the very same properties. So that is why we call it as a twin planet. The structure is almost same, all the composition, everything. And when we think about the solar system, we have to say that there is inner solar system and outer solar system also. The inner solar system is still Mars. So which are the planets from the sun? Mercury is there, then Venus is there, Earth, Mars. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, these are inner solar system. Rest of them are outer solar system. So that is one other reason why we are actually almost identical. So we are all in the inner solar system. Right. And last but not the least, the composition. The composition, they say that almost the very same thing. The composition is the same because they say that we are having, what do you say, the core, no, we already mentioned about the core, it is solid. The core is mainly consisted of which mineral, any idea? Our Earth's core is mainly consisting, it is actually iron. The composition, when we call it, it is Fe. Fe means iron. When we use, if you remember the what is the periodic table, Fe means ferrum, that is iron. So our core and the Venus core are very same thing. It is actually rocky and it is mainly the iron core. So that is, and the rest of the planets definitely have some kind of iron, but we are very similar to each other. That is why we are calling it as a twin system. That is the point. Right. So make sure that these points are actually within you. And what about the temperature of Venus? Is it hotter or cooler than Earth? It is actually very hot. And we can say that our Earth's average temperature is somewhere like 15 degrees Celsius. Because we are taking the polar regions, everything combined together, our average temperature is, surface temperature is 50 degrees Celsius. And the Venus surface temperature is somewhere like 462 degrees Celsius. So that is why not even 2 hours the different satellites can withstand in that particular temperature. So that is the point we have to understand. There are a lot of different differences also from Earth. And what about the atmosphere? We have the atmosphere here. What in our Earth's atmosphere, which gas is actually having the most percentage? It is nitrogen. So in Earth, nitrogen is almost somewhere like 76%, something like that. It's very high. So when we go to the Venus also, it is actually carbon dioxide. So in Venus, the atmosphere, when we say almost 97% is carbon dioxide. So we have 76% nitrogen, and it helps sustain life also, nitrogen. But when we go to Venus, atmosphere is entirely different. It is very thick, thicker than Earth, but it is mainly carbon dioxide. 96 and almost 97% is actually carbon dioxide. That is the difference between Venus and Earth. And what about the yeah, this is the basic things about Venus actually. These are the reasons why Venus is called a twin sister, and some of the differences also. Right. And the last slide we discussed about Venus is regarding some of the characters of Venus. This was one of the images taken from the what is the space of the Venus by some kind of satellites, and they're saying that Venus also has snow-capped mountains. Just a second. Yes, they call it snow-capped mountains. But it is not our own snow. It is not like a water or something like that. All these snow kind of features are actually metals. So their complete mountains, our mountains are rocky, right? There is no metals. There may be metals, etc. We can extract metals, but their mountains are completely metals. All these kind of mountains are created by metals, and they appear like snows. So they have snow-capped mountains, but their snow is actually comprised of metals. That is one point which NASA is actually telling us. And the next thing is actually about the rotation of Venus. How is actually Earth rotating? Is it from west to east or east to west? Is it from west to east or east to west? So in Earth, the sun rises in the east and sun goes to west. So which means that Earth's rotation is actually from west to east, right? So just like that, we have, how many planets are there in the solar system? 8 or 9? Only 8 is there. Who is actually out now? Pluto is actually out. So we have 8 now. So out of the 8 planets, 6 planets actually rotate just like this, just like west to east. So our Earth is actually rotating from west to east, just like different other planets. But there are 2 special cases in our solar system. One is actually Venus. Why? Venus is actually rotating from east to west. So this is actually Venus. It is actually opposite. It's doing the ulta. Right. And there is one more special case. Who is that special case? It is actually Uranus. So there is actually one more special case, that is actually Uranus. And what is the speciality of Uranus? What is the speciality? What may be the speciality of Uranus? It is not, he is definitely rotating in a, clockwise direction, of course. But there is a speciality of Uranus is that Uranus is actually having a rolling motion. That is, when all the planets are rotating like this, Uranus is going like this. Everyone is rotating like this, like that, but he is actually going just like like a ball. If you are actually rolling a ball through the floor, etc., how it will go? Just like that, the Uranus is actually rolling. So this is the special case of Venus and Uranus. Venus is actually exactly opposite to all the other normal planets, less like Earth. Well, when Earth is actually rotating from west to east, Venus is from east to west. That is one point. And one more thing we have to understand about Venus is that how many days Earth take to complete one complete rotation in the axis? Okay, 24. We know that 23 hours, 56 seconds, something like that. We call it 24 hours. Okay. In Earth, it is 24 hours, one single rotation. And how much time for one single revolution around Earth? 1 year, 365 days is there. Right. So when we take Venus, actually, the story is slightly complicated because a Venus, one single day, it takes 243 days actually, 243 Earth days. So when we count 243 times, 243 days, that is the time Venus once will complete one rotation. So it's actually rotating very slow, right? But what about Venus revolution actually? Venus is actually revolving around Earth in 225 days. You see the difference? That is, Venus actually revolves around Earth faster than one complete rotation. We have one rotation one day and we complete around the sun in 1 year actually. But Venus is actually doing the opposite. Venus is actually rotating very slow but revolving around the sun fast. That is what Venus is actually doing. Why Venus is actually acting weird? Any idea? Maybe UPSC can ask you. There are in our solar system, we are having different kinds of satellites are going right now. But when we go for the experiments, we notice that certain planets are actually very special. Elaborate, 10 marks. They can simply create a question like that. So you can definitely mention about Venus as special characters, and you can tell that Venus is having a different kind of motion and why it is having opposite direction. One theory, one hypothesis is that theory is actually having a proof, right? So we can say hypothesis. One hypothesis is that some kind of heavenly body, some kind of celestial object, maybe a planet, maybe some kind of object, they actually hit Venus. It was actually going from west to east only, but something hit Venus and it actually, the motion actually started in a different direction and ultimately stable like this. So that is one hypothesis behind Venus's different direction. So this also has to be understood in you. And we have to also understand that the rain, it also rains in Venus, but all the rain is actually sulfuric acid. Continuously they have rain, but everything is acidic. And the last thing about this particular thing is about this thing called Asian light. So there is a topic that is called Asian light. And what is this actually saying? It is basically the mysterious glow when Venus is actually facing, this is the opposite side of when they're actually facing the sun. This is the dark side. But when we look at the Venus, when we look at the dark side of Venus, we can see a slight glow. And that glow, it is actually called as the Asian light. Right? We, in our own moon, actually, we see the eclipse, right? But when we see what is the crescent of the moon also, we can roughly see the dark side of the moon, right? And when we look very carefully, we can see like that. So just like that, in the Venus thing, when we look at Venus, instead of a shade, it is actually having some kind of glow. What is that glow? It is mysterious. So there are a lot of different hypotheses because of that also, but we have not confirmed what it is actually exactly. So this thing, Asian light glow, is actually mysterious light which is appearing on the dark side of Venus. That is what the thing is actually of. This is what the different topics about Venus. Right. So make sure that whenever you hear the word Asian, it is related with Venus.